It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call shots. Todd, we're in the end game now.
I think we're through the end game now.
We're through the end game. We've come out of the other side, and we are here to finally record an episode of Shots about it. I'm excited to talk to you about this movie.
Oh yeah, because me and you haven't talked about it yet, so.
Very excited to talk to you about this. You know, it's one of those things where, like, it's always like when you record a podcast together. It's always one of those weird things where you're like, save it for the show.
Well, dude, it's like normally we get into it a little bit off the show, but
it's a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
It's a fine tightrope. So we have not spoken about this at all since you've seen the movie, and I'm very excited about that. Avengers Endgame. First of all, this is something I like to do with every episode of Shots. If you've never listened to an episode of Shots, Shots is our movie and TV review podcast. If you've never listened to an episode, though, kind of what we do is we talk about it for a few minutes in a non-spoilery context and give our general non-spoilery thoughts on it. And then I'll make a clear spoiler warning when we get into spoiler territory, where we'll just kind of talk unhinged about the movie. Mm-hmm. That being said, I know a lot of people, especially with a movie like this, are going to be very sensitive to spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want, like, literally, you don't want to hear anything about it, you should not be listening to this.
Yeah, some real shit.
Just go watch the movie. But we're not going to spoil anything for at least a few minutes. And when we do start spoiling stuff, I will let everybody know. So that said, Todd, Avengers Endgame is finally here. The culmination of 11 years of movies.
You basically stole the line I was actually about to say myself.
I mean, that's what it is, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what it is. It's the culmination of 11 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. How are you feeling right now?
It's very, very good.
It's a very good movie.
The one thing we did talk about is that you got emotional.
Oh, yeah.
I actually did tear up a little bit.
I challenge anybody to come out of this movie with a dry eye.
Multiple times, actually.
We'll definitely get into that in the spoiler section, but I challenge anybody to come out of this movie with a dry eye. I mean, this movie tackles, like, I mean, you get emotional because, I mean, like, for better or for worse, like, you have been with these movies for 11 years.
Yep.
What was it, like 22 movies, I think, now?
Mm-hmm.
That have all been leading up to this moment. And there's nothing like it. It is such a crazy achievement in, like, cinematic storytelling. It is like there's nothing quite like Avengers Endgame. And just I'll tell you what, and I feel like I can talk about this without spoiling it. My favorite thing about Avengers Endgame, and the reason I like it so much more than Infinity War, and I liked Infinity War, but I think what really elevates Endgame for me is the fact that, like, Infinity War felt to me like it was all about, like, setup and, like, action and set pieces and fights and, oh, wouldn't this be epic and isn't this badass, you know?
Yeah. Like,
Endgame to me feels much more like quiet. It really spends, like, I would say a solid, like, 70% of the movie just dealing with, like, characters. Just dealing with, like, character moments and, like, and not really even bothering with, like, doubling down on action. So that's for me, like, when I think about this compared to Infinity War, you almost have to view it as, like, two movies, like two parts of the same movie, a little bit. Because this does take place essentially immediately after Infinity War ends. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of a stopgap, but it's more or less immediately after. I don't know, like, what are your thoughts? Hit me with those thoughts. You just saw it today.
Yeah, I just saw it today, and long ass movie. I'll say that.
It was long, but I tell you what, that was something I was actually telling you. Like, they don't waste a minute.
Oh no, like, there's no time to get up at all. Honestly, like, every aspect of this movie has substance. It is important, and God, I'm gonna be honest. I just can't wait to get to the spoiler talk because there's just so much good shit in this movie.
There's plenty to spoil, but I think we can talk about some of this movie without fucking spoiling it.
Definitely.
There's, I think there are ways to dance around it. Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit of the humor in the movie because I think this is actually one of the funnier MCU movies.
Yes.
There are several like laugh out. I mean, we talked about like there's definitely the emotional elements of it, but there's a lot of actual like humor to it too.
They did. I think they did a good job of balancing like the humor and the emotional aspects of the movie quite well.
There's like a level of brevity to it. I really appreciate. I like a good economical script where it's
I can respect having like this balanced level of humor right after Infinity War.
Yeah,
like that's.
But they
good.
don't shy away from like they don't shy away from like getting really dark.
Oh no, they don't fucking shy away from that at all. Oof.
The opening scene of the movie, without spoiling what it is like some like harrowing ass shit.
Well, dude, can I say something? Just vaguely talking about that. I called that.
Oh, you call it a mile away.
I knew just watching like some of the trailers, that's what had to happen.
Right.
But to actually show it, I was like, motherfuckers.
You call it a mile away or whatever, but yeah, it's cool they address it like right at the beginning of the movie before they even roll like the title card.
Mm-hmm.
The movie opens with this like harrowing scene, and the movie, I really like the way that this movie like it does deal with like what is it like to live in this post-Infinity War world, like dealing with the fallout of it all, of the snap, as it were. It's like how do we deal with this? And a lot of the stuff we've seen in the trailers, like they show like shots in the trailer of like Captain America like running kind of like a support group and stuff like that, and the movie does a really good job of like giving us a stopgap of time where we can just really marinate on this world. Like it's not the movie doesn't take like an easy way out with anything. Like it lives with its repercussions. It sets up its rules and it makes sure not to break them. I hesitate. There are elements of the movie that I want to talk about that I hesitate to talk about, and they're like baseline elements of the movie, but I don't want to even like I don't even want to tell you guys what kind of a plot it is.
It'd be spoilers, yeah. It's like it's too
But I also don't want to just like, hey, let's talk about this movie for 2 minutes and then just fuck off into spoiler talk. But I think it's safe to say, just to sort of to sum up everything, I think it's safe to say that this movie is satisfying on an emotional level for everything that we've been following since 2008. For me personally, I've been fatigued of these movies for a while now.
I wouldn't say I've been fatigued by them. More so, just I still look forward to seeing them. It's just at a certain point, it's like I've been on like some subreddits. I know a lot of people that are basically going to call it after this movie and like just not care anymore. Which a part of me is like, damn, I should do that.
I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go next. But for me, like, when these movies were first starting to come out, like, I was really, really into it and stuff. And especially over the past few years when it's like you're getting 3-4 movies a year.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a little, like, worn out a little bit. I'm like, okay, we've been leading to the same thing for fucking so long. And, like, I was enjoying them. I've enjoyed all these Marvel movies for, to varying degrees or whatever. But, like, I was definitely starting to feel like we were just running around in circles until we finally were leading up to this moment. Mm-hmm. Now that we're here, I mean, it really is nice for me, like, just on a personal level, to finally get some closure. Like, this movie sets up what's coming up next, but it doesn't do so blatantly to where, like, it's still kind of up in the air. Like, I really don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
You can make some inferences. You can predict a little bit, and you have, like, an educated guess of where they might be going, but, like, they do so many surprising things in this movie, and they leave so many doors open that, like, they're you have no idea what's going to happen next, and that's exciting to me. But at the same time, it still very expertly gives you a huge level of closure to this first, I guess, saga, the Infinity Saga, as it were, from everything that that we've been building up towards since Iron Man in 2008, the first Iron Man.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't really have much more to say than that for fear of spoiling anything, other than I think it is. I think Endgame is like a perfect send off to this saga of like 20 plus movies.
Yeah.
11 years of films. Like, if you've been on board for all of these movies, like, it's a no-brainer. You gotta see it.
Exactly.
You will laugh. You will cry. There are things. I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, when the ultimate climax of this movie happens, I couldn't believe what the fuck I was seeing. I mean, this movie is mind blowing in a lot of significant ways. Anyway, that's about all I think I want to say. Todd, I'm ready to move into spoilers.
Let's do it.
So, spoiler warning, guys. If you have not seen the movie, if you've made it this far and you have still not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, turn away. Run, Simba, never return. God. Where do you want to start?
Where to begin?
Because there's so much to talk about.
Let's get because one of the things coming into this movie that I was kind of like I was worried about. I was like I did not want Captain Marvel to come in here and like save the fucking day.
I don't think that she does.
No, that's why I wanted to get that out of the way.
Yeah,
I respect she had her moment. Then they actually had a scene that my sister is like me and my sister talked about this. She was on the phone. She's like, I loved and hated this scene at the same time.
Which scene?
The girl power moment.
Oh.
You know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, where it's like all of the women of Marvel.
Yeah, that was cool. It was cool and
Yeah.
all, but I was the same way. Like I loved and hated it at the same time because I was kind of like, ugh, okay.
That's gonna be something I do want to talk about that, but it's like I feel apprehensive about talking about it because on one hand, like,
You can't have an opinion on it. You're sexist.
well, it's not that. No, it's not
I'm
that.
talking
I don't mind saying how I feel about it, but like, I mean, I said something similar when we reviewed Black Panther, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm glad that this stuff is happening, but it almost feels like dirty to me.
Right.
Like, it almost feels like you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, but at the same time,
that's kind of what that scene felt like to me. I was like, oh, okay.
well, you're doing it for the sake of doing it, but at the same time, like, shouldn't it be okay? Like, the fact that it's happening, even if it's for like an ulterior motive, shouldn't it be okay that it's just happening at all, kind of thing?
In a way, but
There are two major instances of that in this movie, where, yeah, they shoehorn in like a kind of girl power moment where you see like all of the women of Marvel, everybody from like Valkyrie to, and this is in the final battle, so we're definitely jumping around here, but we get that shot of like, yeah, Valkyrie and like Pepper Potts' rescue, and like, I'm just
which
everybody.
was awesome, by the way, just saying.
Everybody, all the women together in this little moment, and that's cool and everything. And then the second instance of it, and this is again, we're jumping all over the place, so I guess we'll start by talking about things that happen towards the end of the movie. But Captain America passes off the shield to Sam.
Again, I'm telling you, I called it. I
Should have been Bucky.
No, I knew this was going to happen. We talked about this in Where the Beams Disappear on the Bachelor Party episode.
Yeah.
I think we were saying it even back then. That's like months ago.
It should have been Bucky.
It should have been Bucky. Like, I'm not going to say it. It's been done in the comics. It's been done. Sam as like Cap as Cap.
It's been done. Yeah, I mean, very recently though they did that in the comics.
Yeah,
and then, I mean, Bucky.
I feel like it's in this climate, like that was the choice that they made.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why they're doing it. And that's the thing is like it's hard to. On one hand, the cynic in me is like, okay, they're just doing this because they want to release a Black Captain America movie and they want to make that Black Panther money, right?
Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, like, is it wrong of me to be cynical about it because at least it's happening at all? At least we're getting more Black superhero representation. Like, that's all cool and great, but like the cynic in me like microanalyzes it and says like, you dirty bastard! It's the perfect crime.
Because, dude, I would have loved to see like Bucky with the shield.
Well, here's the thing. Bucky, like, Bucky as Cap makes so much more sense. It would have been so much better for his character.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's been a character in the MCU since the first Avenger.
Yeah.
He's a recurring character, and we've watched his character grow. Sam is kind of, I like Sam or whatever, but he's kind of just, he's there.
He's a real side character. He hasn't had really like he hasn't really had his own like story arc yet. You know what I mean?
And then even in the context of Endgame, Bucky kind of plays a little bit of a major role. Like, they kind of like drive home even more how much Bucky means to Cap. What is, that great scene where it's like Cap on Cap. We're kind of present day Cap is fighting past Cap, and past Cap has him in a chokehold. What does he say?
Bucky's alive.
Exactly. And that's the trigger where he's like, wait, what? And that just goes to show you how important Bucky actually is to Cap. So why the fuck wouldn't he be the one to get the shield?
I know. That
drove me nuts.
Those right there are probably like the two scenes that like I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's probably where my complaints about this movie end.
That's about it, honestly. And it's like the two scene, because even then, like even with like the ending of that the girl power scene is like you get a good little bit of like Captain Marvel's power,
Oh, I have no issue with the scene itself. The scene itself is great.
And then I just loved it. It's like she got her whole thing. Like, oh yeah, she's powerful. Grabbed the power stone, knocked her ass out the battle for a little bit. Boom, done.
Right.
Good. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want her to like just go over there and like whoop the dog shit out of Thanos.
Yeah, well, I kind of like how like cocky she was even from the beginning of the movie, where she's just kind of like, all right, let's kill Thanos.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But let's rewind, because what we just talked about all kind of happens at the end of the movie.
I just wanted to get those. I wanted to get our problems out of the way.
Yeah, and I may circle back to some of that stuff later, but I just let's kind of like rewind and like work our way through the movie to the best of my memory anyway. So the movie starts with that scene that we were hinting at earlier with Hawkeye.
Yes.
And Hawkeye's family. Man, I love that scene.
No, that scene is absolutely incredible. Because it's just like he never saw them get dusted.
Right.
It was just like as he looked away from everyone.
Literally, like, and it just makes you think to yourself, like that's how that probably happened for a lot of people.
Yeah, and for like him as a character, his family was, that was his everything. And
right.
Just, ooh.
Yeah, it's, and then obviously that sends him on the path to become, Ronin.
And I'm telling you, like the moment we saw him like in his new setup and like the trailer, I'm like, oh, his family got fucking dusted.
Of course. Well, I mean, like, yeah, when you see that in the trailer, it's like, okay, cool, looks like he's going Ronin or whatever, and then you think of the reasons why. It was obvious.
Yeah, there's only one reason,
Right. It was completely obvious. With that, we sort of lead into this thing where, it's all the Avengers sort of like almost decompressing after the events of Infinity War, and they're just trying to figure out what they're going to do. And like Thor is sitting there shaken to his core about what's happened. He's about to
drop the
the hottest mixtape of 2019. They're all sitting there trying to figure this out, and like Captain Marvel comes in, as we saw basically during the post credits of Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And she's like, again, the conversation kind of becomes like, let's go kill Thanos or whatever, right? And so they go find where Thanos has been sort of hiding on this other planet. I guess Nebula said that he'd always talked about like, he always talked about going to the garden or whatever after his plan succeeded or whatever. I guess that's another way they found it, is because they say that they found the signature of the snap again.
Yeah.
On another planet.
Yeah.
So they go there, they find him, they kick his ass, and they've got him basically in a chokehold, and he's sort of like beaten and shit like that. And they're like, where's the stones? Like, we know you used them again. He's like, yeah, I used them to destroy them. Like, he says, like, I am inevitable, bitch, basically.
Yeah, again, very, very, that's a very good scene. And it's just like,
and then like the brave thing that they did at that moment though was like, Thor's like, all right, cool, fuck it, decapitates him.
Well, I really enjoyed, like, dude, like I think Hemsworth really showed like how broken Thor was at that moment. Thor's arc in this movie is probably my favorite. Yes, I I personally, like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, at this point, like, Thor's probably one of my like favorite characters in the MCU.
He just like that. It was so cool to see that. I mean, everything that we just talked about happens. We honestly probably spent more time describing what happens than it took for it to actually happen in the course of the movie.
Shit. Real
this
shit.
all happens in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. It's like, fuck, you open the movie by killing Thanos. And then from then on, I mean, and this is, again, I didn't even want to say this in the non-spoilery section, but it's a time travel movie.
Yep. Yeah, time travel movie. So it's like, well, first things first, it does a time skip of 5 years into...
which I love.
5 years. At that point, you can get into some little bit of bullshit with like all the characters and whatnot. But yeah, after 5 years, I love this. This movie would not happen unless this fucking mouse did not accidentally open up the quantum realm.
That's something where like maybe that's a little convenient.
It's a little convenient. It is. I mean, that's the thing. Like, how else would it have happened though? If it was just a mouse that just randomly like get in there. But
yeah, I mean, it's a little convenient or whatever. But that's honestly one of the things that I think people complain about.
Yeah. But either way, it got the movie going, got Scott Lang out. That's kind of what started it all with the whole time travel shit. Also, Back to the Future is horseshit.
That's some real shit.
Oh Lord.
That was a funny bit.
Yeah, it was good.
All the like movie references and all the time travel movie references.
Yeah, it's all horseshit.
It's pretty good. That's probably the main thing that like if you really wanted to sit there and nitpick.
Oh, dude, I've seen an article that's like nitpick the shit out of the time travel in the movie. It's like, dude, just enjoy it. Just fucking enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could go back and nitpick all sorts of things from the time travel aspect of the movie. And that's kind of inevitable. Like if you have a time travel story, you're always going to kind of leave those doors open.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. In the moment, it worked on me. Nothing really bothered me.
No, not at all.
There's the whole shit of like if Cap went back and like actually married Peggy, did he make out with his niece?
Well, here's the thing: does she exist anymore?
Well, I think the thing about it is like
or it was always meant to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean like the reason it doesn't bother me is because like Bruce establishes the way that kind of shit works in this universe.
Yeah.
Where like just because you go back in time and like kill your grandpa doesn't mean that you weren't born, kind of thing. Like they make a point to say like, no, that's not how this works. All of this stuff is gonna still happen. And that was another point of contention that some people had is like, oh, if Cap's going back in time, does that mean that the events of like Winter Soldier never happened? And I'm like, wait, no. Like it's like Bruce says, everything is still gonna happen the way it happens.
Yeah.
Like you can mess with the flow of time all you want, but everything that's gonna happen is gonna happen. There's definitely certain things where they also play with the typical time travel tropes of like, okay, like, try not to get seen by yourself and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Even when it does happen, Cap's like, it's Loki. Which was good. Yeah, no, I also loved the stuff with Tony. When they like in the 5-year kind of like gap where he has a daughter and stuff.
Yes. And
you kind of see like what he has to lose. It's very good.
And they play on his relationship with Peter for that.
Yes. Well, that's ultimately what got him back into the game.
Yep.
Because they approach him, they're like, okay, we need to do time travel. We need to go back in time and get the stones. Who do we know that can figure that out? It's Tony.
Mm-hmm.
So they track Tony down. They try to get him on board, and he doesn't want to do it.
No, he doesn't do it. He has too much to lose, and then he sees an old picture of him and Peter, and gets him back into it. But before he truly gets back into it, they go to my boy, Professor Hulk.
You've been wanting some Professor Hulk for a long time. So
now, do I wish I got a little more Hulk in this movie? A little bit.
I really liked Hulk in this movie.
No, I do. I enjoy it. I definitely enjoyed him because like motherfucker dabbed. God damn it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the amount of Hulk that we got. I thought it was. I really thought that everybody kind of got their moment.
Yeah, everyone kind of got their moment.
It didn't feel like underserved. Like, again, just every, and this conversation is inevitably going to be all over the place. But
it is. It's gonna be more of a rambling sort of thing.
But we'll get there. I love the I love when Scott Lang first gets out into the present day, because there's been like a period of 5 years or whatever, but for him it was 5 hours.
Yes, and I love that he finds this monument to the vanished or whatever.
Yes,
and he's looking for his daughter on it, and then he just sees himself. He's like, oh.
Yeah, he's scanning all of these monuments to the fallen, to the vanished, and he's scanning them looking for Cassie Lang or whatever, and he's like, God, no, please no.
Now, I will say this 5-year time skip was actually pretty smart for them.
Oh, extremely. I love it.
Because, now it's like, now they basically said, fuck it, grew up Cassie, and now if they really want to, they can do her own thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really think that that's going to be, like, kind of where we're going to go with a lot of this stuff, like, in the future. There's been rumors for a long time about like dealing with some Young Avengers kind of stuff, and
they could definitely grab Cassie for that. What's her whole thing? Was it stature? Is that the deal?
So yeah, something like that.
Some shit like that, if I remember correctly.
There's multiple routes. A little
sad because that little girl from the first two are like, she's like the best part.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she's pretty great. But then they also obviously they've got plenty of setup with with Morgan Stark or whatever, with Tony's daughter. That could be something one day.
Oh, can I say something? Like, I feel like I was the only person that recognized this kid at the end.
Did you really recognize him?
I did.
Oh, come on!
I dead ass did.
Wow,
dude, he had it's the eyes. I recognize the eyes.
Wow. Well, the power of IMAX, I guess.
I recognized them as soon as I saw him. I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's the kid from Iron Man 3."
It took me a second to like. I definitely like when I saw it. I was like, "Who's this kid?" And like, kind of. I'm like, let me look up who this fucking kid was.
I didn't even have to look it up.
I have a hard time buying it. Hard time buying it, Todd. But it was nice to see that. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because I want to talk about that last. Because
that's
that whole thing.
It is the end. We'll talk about that at the end.
That whole thing deserves its own conversation.
Yep.
Let's talk about Thor. Thor in this movie. The reason I love his arc so much in this movie is because we pick up with him after 5 years, and he has founded like New Asgard, right?
Yes.
And New Asgard is like, was it like Norway or something like that?
Yeah,
it's like this basically fishing town.
Yeah, Norwegian fishing villagers, basically.
It's this little like fishing village or whatever, and they go to like track him down to sort of like get the band back together or whatever. And they're like, they're like, where is he? And Valkyrie's there or whatever. It's like he comes out like once a month for supplies, but otherwise he just stays in his house.
Yeah.
They go to his house, and Thor's fat now. I can finally do a Thor cosplay. That was one of the first things I said walking out of the movie. I was like, I can finally do a Thor cosplay. I just need some like sunglasses.
It's basically channeling The Big Lebowski, which is a very...
And they make that reference.
Yeah, they make that reference, and it was good.
So, anyway, they find Thor. He's there, playing Fortnite with Buddy from Ragnarok.
Korg and Meek.
Yes, sitting there playing Fortnite with them or whatever, and it was funny. Like Dan, I was talking to Dan, and he made the point. He's like, whales have made themselves back into the Hudson. The world is so fucked, but people are still playing Fortnite. That's the way it would be. But I love Thor's arc in this movie because, like, I found it so relatable. Like him, sort of like living at this cross section of like who he is and who he feels like he should be, and just like, just his world being shaken and him not knowing how to deal with losing. Yeah, he's Thor. He's never lost before, and like I think that's so relatable on that level. And like, he lets himself go. He gets fat and shit like that, and he runs out of fucks like really, really quickly. But then by the end of the movie, he's like, well, like, this is who I am. I'm just going to embrace who I am and not worry about who I should be.
Yeah.
and he actually like turns over leadership of Asgard to Valkyrie.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm not a leader. I never wanted to be a leader. So I really, really loved his whole arc. And he really has become like one of my favorite characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to talk about. God, there's just so much to unpack. I'm just thinking of like all of the like little things in this movie. I really loved the scene where they track Clint down like in Japan.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Just visually. Gives you that little taste of action. That's because they knew that it was him. They were saying like, oh, there's all these like gangs who are like turning up dead and stuff like that, and that it's the work of fucking the Ronin, you know, and Nat Black Widow is sitting there trying to deny it, and she's like, no, it's him. Let's find out where he's going next and let's get him,
And I actually really enjoyed the line before that was I don't even know if I wanna.
Right. Yeah, I think it's Rhodey, right? It's sort of like, I don't know if I...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a good scene. God. I feel like this is the kind of movie where, like, I want to watch it again, and I almost want to, like, take notes. There's so much going on.
There's too much shit going on.
Like, my head is just, like, buzzing, just unpacking all the events of the movie.
Because that's the thing with, like... when they do get into the time travel aspect of the movie, like that itself, almost every single person in there gets their moments, gets their scenes with certain good character moments, basically.
Yes.
And man, we can go there next, basically. Talk about those.
Yeah.
So with the time travel aspect of this movie, basically what they end up doing is to get the stones from the different times in our history, basically the movies.
they literally time travel back to like New York in 2012 during the events of like Avengers 1. They kind of time hop they go forth in like different teams.
Yes.
The setup is that they have these Pym particles, and it's kind of like they have kind of one shot to get all this done.
Enough Pym particles for one round trip.
Right.
And so with that, you got 3 teams. It's basically one team going to New York and 2 teams going to 2014.
Right.
2014, basically, like in the basically in the beginning of Guardians, basically.
Right. They start kind of like, because Hulk goes to get the time stone from the Ancient One.
Yes.
That was it was cool to see the Ancient One.
And that, oh God, I love that moment when he's like, then why the hell did Strange give it away?
Right. Well, it's funny because like he goes and like to talk to her and stuff, and like she already knows that all of this is going to happen, but she doesn't realize that Strange gave it away, and she was like, well, he knew. If he gave it away, he knew it was best.
Well, the thing is, like, she can't see her own future, right? And she couldn't see all of Strange's future.
She couldn't see the things that Strange saw.
Yeah. So all she knew that Strange was supposed to be the best of us. So
right. So she knew that if Strange had given away the time stone, she knew that it was for a reason.
Yep.
So that was kind of how that went down. But it was cool to see her again, and like in a pretty meaty like scene actually.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of explained a little more of the time travel. Like you need to, it makes a branching little parallel universe sort of timeline basically. But
right.
If you then that's where like Bruce is like, oh, then we'll just put everything back right where we right at the time we took them.
An interesting thing happens because Tony and Steve, they go back because they want to recover Loki's scepter and the Tesseract, and so it's kind of funny.
Just the Tesseract.
Well, doesn't Steve grab the scepter?
He does grab the scepter, but then he gives the scepter to Scott to give back. So
that's right.
So when they go further back, they're getting they need to get more Pym particles, and then because they only had one more trip. So there's another place where the Tesseract was going to be.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. so they go to get the Tesseract, and this is something that was
you're
interesting.
going back a little. You're going back too far because we need to talk about that right from the comics moment. Hail Hydra.
Oh, you're talking, yeah, in the elevator. Yeah.
Yes, I love that shit.
that was cool. Yeah, when he to sort of like get the briefcase, you actually see fucking Crossbones there.
Yeah, it's legit like a recreation of the scene from Winter Soldier.
They straight up like, and they did this in several instances where they straight up recreated.
Yeah.
Like, and got all the actors back. Like Robert Redford comes back and everything, and like literally just as if it were happening. I mean, it was very cool.
And it was just like, I'm telling you, it looked like it was about to just be that ass whooping again.
But he just comes in and he just says "Hail Hydra," and they just hand it to him.
Yep, it's so good. Yeah, and then basically Scott and Tony fail at getting the Tesseract. And
this is what I want to talk about because Loki escapes.
Yes.
So, like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
You know?
That's some real shit.
That's really... I feel like that's sort of something that has slipped through the cracks. Is, like, people are, kind of forgetting that, like, yeah, Loki escapes with the Tesseract in that timeline, you know? What could it mean, Todd? The implications.
It's a weird thing. It's like, who knows what they're going to do with that. But yeah, after they fail, they end up going further back, and that like, whole base... is kind of important because that is where Captain America was born.
They go back to the old SHIELD headquarters in like 1970, right?
Yes, 1970.
Because that's where that's where they get the other Tesseract or whatever, but there's also Pym particles.
Yes.
That they can get there. And there's a fucking awesome sequence where Tony is, trying to kind of sneak his way through the SHIELD base. They're undercover. And he encounters his father.
Yes.
Oh.
And this is actually like right basically when Tony's going to be born almost in a weird way. Yeah.
He mentions that like his wife is expecting, and he's like, there's so many great moments with that. Like where so much great dialogue. They talking about how like he just hopes that he wanted a daughter because he didn't want a son that was going to turn out to be just like him.
What's so wrong with that?
So good.
Yeah,
so good.
And even like Steve has like his like little moment there. Just I'm telling you, you just see that man out of time, just like looking at the woman he loves and shit.
Yeah, because he's sort of like running away because he's people are starting to figure them out, or rather that one lady fucking rats him out.
Right.
And he's running away and he finds himself where else but in Peggy Carter's office.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he gets to see sort of through the glass, the woman he loves. And I feel like at that moment, like in that moment where he's back in time seeing her, I think that's when the seed was planted.
I know, I definitely agree. Like that is like where
there's a look on his face where like he sees her and then he sort of looks to the ground, and I'm like, now knowing like, Chris Evans like says so much with just his face.
Yes.
And I just know that in that moment, that's when the seed was planted. He's like, when this is all over, like I'm coming back and I'm living my life with this woman. I'm not going to make her wait for this dance any longer. Oh, it's so good.
So yeah, and then at that point we get into, that's just with New York. Shit.
Yeah, that's just the one group in New York.
At that point, so I guess let's handle Thor and Rocket next.
Yes.
Which is, again, just more adding to Thor's character arc, and I'm telling you, the moment with his mom.
Yes.
So good.
Yes, it was awesome. Get a little bit of closure with his mom.
And it's just like the future has not been kind to you.
Just eat a salad.
Eat a salad. Like that was good. And just that moment, man, and then just him just reaching out, and he's like, I'm still worthy with Mjolnir. Yes.
to get Mjolnir back. Oh my god. Before we move on further, can we backtrack just a second? Because my favorite aspect of this movie is America's ass.
Oh my god, yes.
And when
it's funny, I've seen images. Okay, I've seen images of like this is the plot of like Endgame with no context. It's just images.
Yeah.
And I've seen that image. I'm like, it's just an ass with like an American flag. I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Fucking just like, and then that's his first words. Like after he like defeats himself from the past.
He just like looks down. It's like
that is America's ass.
That was good.
Oh my god. Because it's funny, because that's been the sort of like, that's been sort of the through line of like, the fan base. Oh, got that ass.
That is America's.
Captain America's got those cakes.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, the stuff with Thor. So basically, essentially, like Rocket is going after Jane Foster, who has the ether or whatever inside of her, which I basically completely forgot about the plot of Thor 2. So
I didn't.
It's kind of nice to have it acknowledged in this movie. Like they're even that's the thing, is they're really embracing the past 11 years. They're even acknowledging Thor 2.
Which is on the bottom of our ranking.
It's not a good movie.
Still though, really love the moment with his mom though. That was a very good scene.
Love that. We get obviously Mjolnir back in the mix, which sets up a very good moment later. My dick was hard.
Oh, you're rock solid. So yeah, at that point, let's the other people that we got like two teams that went to 2014.
Right.
So you have Clint and Natasha, and you have Rhodey and Nebula.
Right. So Rhodey and Nebula, they basically, and this was actually a hilarious scene too. They basically go to, I forget the name of the planet. Morag. And they sit there and wait for Star-Lord basically to appear in the opening sequence from Guardians 1 where he's dancing.
Mm-hmm. And he is actually apparently singing.
And they again faithfully recreated the scene, basically shot for shot from Guardians 1. But then he's sitting there like singing as well, and they're just like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
And they just like quickly and easily knock his ass out.
Mm-hmm.
and get the stone, from the ruins or the temple or whatever.
The
quite
temple
easily.
of the Power Stone.
This is just like any Indiana Jones movie. There's gonna be some spikes with some skeletons and shit.
And that leads into some interesting shit with Nebula and the past Nebula.
Right.
Because the whole reason is just because she has all these like cybernetic pieces.
Yes.
Basically, it was the plot device for Thanos to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Well, yeah, because there had to be something like that. Otherwise, there would be no reason for him to know what was happening.
Yeah.
So essentially, the parts of present Nebula and past Nebula are linked.
Synced together, basically.
Yeah. So she was able to sort of like let Thanos in on what was happening. But yeah, so while that's going on, they handle, they sort of handle him. While the other group, Clint and Nat, they go to Vormir, and we all know what happens there.
I'm telling you, like when I found out they were going to Vormir, I was like, okay, so somebody's dying here.
I really love that scene.
The thing, it could have been any of them. That's the thing. It could have been.
I disagree. I think it had to be Nat.
I do agree with that.
I think that in Hawkeye's own head, he thinks that it could have been any of them. But the reality is, like, Hawkeye has a real family. Mm-hmm. Like that's what that whole scene drives home is like. He can say all day long, like, oh, no, I deserve it just as much as you do. And she's like, no, you don't. You have a real family. The people that we're saving now, this is my family.
Yeah.
Because, Red Skull's there, obviously, and he, to sort of prove, not even really to prove, he just kind of says, like, son of blah, 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 and daughter of blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, he knew your father's name. And she's like, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never knew my father's name, And that just drives home, like, she never had any other family other than the Avengers. So, of course, I feel like it really had to be her.
Yeah.
So, obviously, she's the one that makes the sacrifice. And the acting that Jeremy Renner does, like, when all that is going down.
Oh, yeah.
He really sells it.
Oh, dude, he sells it just sitting there with the fucking Soul Stone in his hand. He's just sitting there like... He's covered in water, but you can still know that this man is like just bawling at this point.
Yeah, really good. And like it just really, how high the stakes are in that moment.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that kind of covers the retrieval of all the stones
to them for the most part. But yeah, So as everyone gets, sent back, like everybody goes back to the present, like 5 years in the future, basically, or whatever, or 9 years in the future, technically, from 2014.
Yes.
It's not our Nebula that comes back there. It is past Nebula.
That's another interesting thing, because now at this point, as we continue on, and the movie deals with this for a brief moment, where like, yeah, Gamora's back, but not really.
It's not our Gamora.
It's not our Gamora.
It is
right?
the Gamora pre-Guardians.
So like, Quill's all happy to see her.
That was a scene with Quill and her, which was funny.
Quill's all happy to see her and shit, but it's like, she's like, who the fuck are you?
Well, in a way, she knows, because it's Nebula apparently told her about him, and he's like, "That's him." It's like, yeah,
yeah. She's like, "This is him" or whatever, but like, she doesn't have any of that emotional connection.
There's no emotion. There's no ties to
Right.
the Guardians with this current Gamora. Not yet,
Right.
at least. That'll lead into some interesting stuff, and like maybe in the next Guardians movie, a couple things that'll lead into some interesting shit in the next Guardians movie.
Right.
Nebula opens up the gateway and lets like Thanos from the past through with his big old army and shit.
Big army, which, here's another thing. So we see a few like monsters from his army that we didn't see in Infinity War, and I don't really understand why.
Yeah,
Like we see those big,
those big hulking looking ones,
those big gorilla looking ones.
Yeah,
it's like, where were they during the fight in Infinity War?
Oh shit! I didn't even talk about, like, this is actually, I do enjoy the fact that it was Bruce that did the snap.
Yeah, that was cool.
I was made for this.
Right,
Yeah.
because he justifies it, like, this gamma radiation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It becomes at that point almost a, Thanos kind of summons his army, and they fight, and Thanos, nearly wins.
Oh, dude, and it's actually during this initial fight where it happens. My dick gets rock solid.
They're fighting, Thor's there. He's got, his armor back on.
By the way, I love the fact he's dual wielding, like Stormbreaker and Mjolnir.
Yeah,
That
he's
shit is
dual wielding
incredible.
Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. He's doing some good damage, right? Like, he's, Thanos is getting like a bit of an ass beating, but ultimately Thanos just like beats the shit out of everybody, and like like Cap's sitting there, and it finally happens, Todd.
Right from the dude, I'm telling you, I was rock fucking solid when this happened.
He's worthy.
And I love Thor's reaction. He's like, I knew it.
Yes, Cap finally see Cap wielding Mjolnir. And I thought that was the hardest my dick could get, but it got harder. Because after Thanos, gets his ass thoroughly whipped, they've got Thanos' army behind. It looks pretty dire. Cap's got his ass beat.
Basically, it's like, after like Thanos kind of gets his ass up a little bit, he brings up the ass whipping to a 10 to everybody else. Like,
Yes,
fucking like Cap's like just sitting there,
shields broken.
Yes. He finally gets back up. Then he just hears.
You hear the portals that are bringing the vanished back.
And it's just, I love this throwback. On your left.
Yes, and you hear Sam, and then like, yeah, the portals begin to open. Everybody, the Wakandan army comes out. Like, everybody comes out.
This is the scene I actually got like choked up at. I was like,
and you start to see everybody. It's so epic. Like, it's so fucking cool. Everybody from all of these movies coming out of the portal for this final battle. And we finally hear Captain America say, "Avengers assemble."
dude, I'm telling you right now, dude, I was like tearing up and shit, getting all emotional during that scene.
I didn't know what to do with myself when he.
Dude, it was too good. It was
like, my
too
mouth was
fucking
agape.
Good.
Just my jaw was on the fucking floor when that happened.
And God, I love the quick interaction with like Peter and Tony. There,
Yes.
like right in the beginning of that battle, basically, and it's just the hug, and he's like, "Oh, this is nice."
Because no time has passed for them.
Yeah, dude, I love that reaction. He's like, "Oh, I thought I passed out, and then I woke up. Doctor Strange is like, it's been 5 years."
Yes.
I love fucking Tom Holland as Peter Parker.
I honestly, the way this movie with all the events of this movie, I really can't wait to see Far From Home and how they deal with.
Dude. Well, you know what's
post
weird is like
Endgame.
if Far From Home is taking place like during like after this movie, it's like, damn. So what? Did everybody get dusted out of his friend group?
Pretty much, I think so.
I mean, they basically was I forget his name. Was it Ned?
Ned,
Was it Ned? Yeah. Then Ned got dusted. Like it looked like. From,
Yeah. Well, pretty much everybody had to, right? Because
they'd do Far From
otherwise,
Home,
because otherwise they'd be 5 years older, right? So,
Yep.
That's going to be really interesting to see how they juggle that.
And
It's gonna be really cool.
it really, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to Far From Home. But let's get back into the battle shit, I guess. The
huge epic battle happens involving all of the
Everyone.
characters.
fucking everyone.
Everyone is there. I mean, everybody gets their moment. It is not like I did not leave the theater like unsatisfied with the treatment of any of the characters. Like it is breathtaking.
Instant kill mode, bro.
That was so good. It was just it's fucking breathtaking. Like you see, I like just taking it in visually like a feast.
Oh, dude, yes, it was so good. And it's just I love like the fucking relay race with the fucking gauntlet.
With the gauntlet, yes. We get the cool moments of Black Panther being badass, with the gauntlet and everything, and oh my god. But so anyway, we should get to this. Thanos gets his hand on the gauntlet, right? And there's this whole moment where we talked about this earlier, where it's the girl power moment. Captain Marvel like takes down Thanos' like main ship, has the whole moment with Thanos trying to get the gauntlet off of him and everything. Thanos removes the Power Stone and just like punts her with it, basically.
Yeah.
And Tony is sort of like in a bad way, and he gets this look from Doctor Strange with his one finger up motion, kind of signifying like this is the only way. This is the one outcome.
Yeah.
This is the one in 14 million.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, Tony does kind of a rope-a-dope thing and puts a Iron Man gauntlet on Thanos. So that when Thanos, he's like, I am inevitable, and he snaps again and nothing happens, right?
Well, that's the thing. The Iron Man gauntlet was the new gauntlet.
Well, yeah, but the moment of seamlessly like tricking him into thinking that he still had the right gauntlet on. And then, Tony, of course, is there with the real shit. And he says, and I am Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. So good.
And he snaps Thanos and his entire army out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as the movie establishes, the repercussions for snapping are major.
Yeah, even powerhouses like Thanos and the Hulk
Can barely take it.
Yeah.
So for Tony, a human, which I really, of course, this ends up killing him.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this. I knew this was the only way it was gonna go out. I knew that this movie was gonna be like a swan song for fucking Tony or someone. I knew it was.
And it absolutely is. But I just love the way that it calls back to almost like take away the suit and what are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because without the suit, like he grows as a character to that point where it's like he is something without the suit now.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting emotional like right now.
and so Tony dies, and this is the end of Tony Stark. And I tell you what, like the funeral scene, that was when they got me. I was choking up throughout.
No, I was choking up like, dude, like I don't know, because I really enjoy the relationship with like Peter and Tony.
Yeah.
And like that shit started to get me. I'm like he's like, we did it. And I was like, fuck.
That was all sad and everything. And again, I'm choking up like sporadically throughout the movie, but I didn't like when we got to the actual funeral, when we got to Tony's funeral, after all this happens and and we win and Tony makes the ultimate sacrifice and saves everybody and he is Iron Man and blah, blah, blah. And we finally deal with the fallout of his death at his funeral. And like, it is just, I was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
That was when the tears started flowing.
Yep.
Because it was uncontrollable. I was with a group of like people that have never seen me cry. I was purposefully like trying not to cry, and it was literally uncontrollable tears. I'll tell you what really like brought it home was because we see obviously everybody's in attendance. Mm-hmm. Like you said earlier, down to the kid that he sort of like mentors in Iron Man 3. Everybody's there. I mean, and they're all in their own like little groups, but everybody's there for his funeral. And, Wanda has her kind of moment with Clint where they're grieving the loss of like Vision and Nat.
Yeah.
And that's a nice little moment.
Just a quick backtrack. Scarlet Witch doing that shit to Thanos, good shit.
That was cool. That was such a good moment.
That was her moment. Like, 'cause I think people don't forget like how powerful she is.
She's extremely powerful, and here's the thing is like it's easy to forget in the midst of everything that like Vision doesn't come back.
Yeah,
like Vision's gone, and he took that. She's like, you took everything from me. He's like, I don't even know you, and she's like, you will. Oh, so fucking good. So they have their little moment though, kind of like grieving their kind of more personal losses, not to overshadow the loss of Tony or anything, but they do still have their moment. But the part that really got me was when they send the flowers on the water, and in the center of it is his core from Iron Man 1 that Pepper made him. Oh,
proof that Tony Stark has a heart.
Oh, that got me.
Yeah, I know it got me.
That was when I was like, God damn it. These motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. So did you actually stay through the credits?
I did not, but I do know what it is.
Okay. Yeah, so there's some people who are getting stupid about it. So what happens is at the end of the credits it plays like a clanging sound, like the sound of like hammering on metal. Yeah, it's the same sound from
Iron Man 1 of him like making the Mark 1.
Right. Which is it's simply just to say just kind of a full circle moment of like this is where we began.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that,
But there's some people who are stupid about it. Like I think it's actually Wolverine's adamantium claws.
What?
Yeah, just idiots. I think it's teasing the how the next saga is going to involve the X-Men. Oh, it's dumb.
I mean, it easily could, but that's not what that sound is.
That's not what they're referencing at all. I love that they didn't like have any sort of like agenda with this movie. This movie is just the Endgame. It's not about tying into like finally we're not fucking tying into something or teasing something coming.
Part of the journey is the end, Seth.
Finally, we're ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I love so much about it. That's what makes this movie so refreshing to me.
I will say this. I really enjoyed that Thanos just kind of like sat down and just accepted it.
Well, he knew it was happening.
He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. There's the fucking great moment. And I was talking to Dan about this where, Happy's sitting there on the bench with Morgan, Tony's daughter, and he's like, how you holding up? Blah blah blah. You want something to eat? And she's like, yeah, cheeseburger. Just like Tony said as soon as he gets out of the limo when they rescue him in Iron Man 1.
Yep.
I want an American cheeseburger. He's eating Burger King and shit like that. So I loved that little callback. But you gotta imagine like how emotional it must have been for like Jon Favreau to literally bury the character that he basically created. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, like it or not, Jon Favreau, like, really spearheaded all of this with that first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
So to see that story finally come to an end after 11 years, man, I mean, it's... The feels are unparalleled. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else like this in movies. Love it or hate it. Like I said, I was fatigued for a long time of this shit. But there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. I mean, and then the only other scene after the funeral scene is something we've already kind of talked about with... But
we didn't go into detail, though.
Yeah, we can go into a little bit more detail. So
Steve says he's going to sort of take on the job to go back using the quantum tunnel or whatever to go back and put the stones back where they came from and everything. And they're like, how long is it going to be? Professor Hulk's like, for him, as long as he needs, for us, about 5 seconds. And they time it, they sync it up and everything, countdown from 5, and Cap doesn't come back, right?
And he just doesn't come back. And then I do like this. At least Bucky was the first one to realize.
Oh, Bucky knew immediately.
Yeah.
He said goodbye or whatever, and Cap's like, "Oh, I'll be right back," basically, and he's like, "No."
And they actually that line itself is a throwback to the first Avenger.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, they realize Sam kind of turns around. He sees an old man sitting on a bench in the distance, and of course it's Steve, who has gone back in time and lived his entire life with Peggy. He's wearing, he notices that he's wearing a wedding ring, but he doesn't want to talk about it. But we get a flashback where we see Peggy and Steve. God, I'm getting choked up just even talking about it.
I know. Finally having their dance.
Finally having their dance inside of their home.
And that was the final scene of Endgame.
So good. So good. But we see, we do get that kind of closure with everybody, as we see, like, in the montage, like right before the funeral, the little montage of like Peter going back and meeting Ned and
Yep.
Clint with his family and everything. But yeah,
I'm gonna say something like the trailer. Have you seen any of the trailers from Far From Home? You've seen the trailer from Far From Home.
I saw that one that we saw ahead of Shazam.
I'm trying to remember if the trailer shows him eyeing the Spider-Man suit. Yeah, the Iron Spider suit.
I don't think so.
Well, either way, there's a trailer where he looks at the Spider-Man suit. It's the Iron Spider suit, and he just doesn't want to take it. And it makes so much more sense now.
That would make sense, yeah.
Because it's just like, damn.
Because now it has some, like, memories attached to it.
Yeah,
painful memories. Yeah, it just... I can't stress enough, like, how powerful this movie was in so many ways. Like...
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think it's because, like, I'm so happy that they went... I'm so glad that, like, even though this movie is obviously intimately connected to Infinity War, I'm so glad it's not just Infinity War 2. Because,
it is its own movie, Because,
like, again, enjoyed Infinity War just fine. But I'm so glad that this movie took a different approach. This movie was all about the characters.
I think that's what makes this movie so good. It makes it so powerful. Is because it's character driven as fuck.
Yeah, this movie really, like, marinated on the 11 years and let you enjoy it. And literally, how perfect, you can hem and haw about a time travel story, you can nitpick the time travel story, but how you can't really get much more perfect of, like, a nostalgia trip than literally taking us back to those movies.
Yeah, it was so good just to see some of the old. I loved seeing going back, like fucking Tony's just sitting there like behind them, like they're doing the pose at the end of Avengers 1.
Yes, it's all so good. I mean, you can't. I really can't ask for a more perfect send off to this saga of movies. It was very, very satisfying. I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah, so that's some real shit.
I really can't. I kind of expected to have, like... I expected to love the movie, but it ended up being so much more special than that.
I'm trying to think, like, if we ever re-ranked the Marvel movies, like, where I would place this.
I gotta be honest with you, this would be very close to the top for me.
No, I'm with you. Like, I don't know if it would be number one, but it would be up there.
Here's the thing about, like, when you're talking about the Avengers movie, like, I always say that the first Avengers, I'll never replicate that feeling of seeing the first Avengers for the first time, but Endgame is another thing where it's like, I'll never replicate this.
Yeah.
Like, I will never have the feeling that I got watching Endgame for the first time is never going to be replicated. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can't replicate the beginning and you can't replicate the end.
Yeah.
Some
real shit. Yeah.
So I really, really loved this movie. I can't wait to watch it again. I really can't. I can't wait to do my Thor cosplay. I was like, finally, Fat Thor is a thing. Anyway, I'm sure there's something that we missed, but I think
I know for a fact there's like shit that we missed, but it's like
I think we've sufficiently covered it.
Yeah,
I could sit here and wax poetic for another hour about this, but I don't want to waste anybody's time. Very, very, very special movie, and I just want to say Of course, nobody from Marvel is is ever going to listen to our stupid podcast, but you got to tip your hat. You got to thank Kevin Feige, who has spearheaded all of this for the past 11 years, and without his sort of guidance and without like the way that he has steered this ship. I mean, this movie and really these movies.
Wait, I'm laughing right now because I saw a meme that like Kevin Feige's face after Endgame.
Yeah,
it's like Thanos. Like, now I rest.
Yes,
for in a Grateful Universe.
I don't know. Yeah, the sun setting on a Grateful Universe. Yeah. And it's true because like without him, none of this would be so expertly tailored. And you just gotta tip your hat to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, you got anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered it in this hour and 10-minute show.
Are we in the end game now? Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Hey there, thanks for checking out another fantastic Nerd Bourbon video. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, be sure to go ahead and subscribe, leave us a like, drop us a nice comment, or I guess a mean one if that's your prerogative. But until next time, get dunked on.